Welcome to the Young Turks. We've got a great guest for you guys today, Joe Costello. He's the author of the book Of, By, For, The New Politics of Money, Debt, and Democracy. Now, Joe, before we go into the book, I want the audience to be familiar with your background because it's really interesting. So tell me a little bit about yourself.
All right. I've been in or following American politics for 30 years. My first campaign was Ted Kennedy's in 1980, and I walked in as a volunteer. I was 19 years old. And then dropped out of school, spent 9 months traveling the country. In fact, it was the first time I was in Los Angeles. I spent a month here for the California primary. And I got the political bug and became very interested in it. Then I spent 12 years doing campaigns from state senate to city council to congressional races. And in '92, I did California Governor Jerry Brown's primary run in '92. Which was a campaign about money in politics and you know, the traditional media, the professional cast that was developing, that was running politics, and saying that if we didn't change this, we were going to have to, you know, it was only going to get worse. And
all right, I want to come back to that in a second, but finish up, and then after that?
Then I got out of politics for a while and did energy and did internet stuff. And I got back in 2004 because I was so disgusted to it, and I was a senior advisor for Howard Dean's campaign in 2004.
Right.
And now, and the whole interest, my whole interest in the last 20 years was to remain on how do we reform the system? Because if we don't reform the system in some way, we're going to continue to get what we're getting right now.
Right.
And it's detrimental to the country.
Yeah, well, I think we've, you know, I say this a lot recently, I think we've lost our representative democracy. I think these guys who literally buy the elections, I love that, you know, that Brown ran down that back in '92. And, you know, I see your track record here. Now, a lot of people might not remember, Kennedy was the liberal alternative to Jimmy Carter in 1980. So you've worked on all these campaigns who were the liberal alternative that just barely lost. Okay.
Yeah.
So that leads us to Jerry Brown. You know, I watched War Room the other night, and I forgot how close Brown was to Clinton.
Right.
You know, you guys almost had him. And you were telling me before we got on, Brown was only taking $100 donations?
Yeah, that was the $100 limit. That's all we would take. Because it was.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
But look at, you know, Joe, isn't it amazing how much the system has changed? Because now when Buddy Roemer tried the same thing in the Republican Party, former governor of Louisiana, respected guy, etc., crushed, not even close, never had a chance because he only took donations of $100. In '92, at least Jerry Brown had a shot. What'd you guys win, 8 states?
Yeah, we raised $5 million, and then another $5 million of that was matching, so we got $10 million in, you know, 7 months, so it was a pretty good effort.
Wow.
But it's only gotten worse, right? And we were talking about this in '92, and we were saying, look, money, and you know, we focused a lot on money, and the $100 was kind of symbolic, right? It's like, here, everybody, you know, could give $100 or $20 or something, you know, but no one's going to be above anyone else by pouring in all sorts of money. And now, you know, we have a system where basically there is no more campaign controls. You know, the money is just completely flowing in like it never has, and it's destroying the system. I mean, there's just no simple process about it. I mean, it's very difficult to say that we have a democracy at this point in this country.
Yeah, so if Jerry Brown had won, then what would he have wanted to pass? What would have been his priority?
Okay, now I got to think a little bit about this, but
like,
you know, we were
in
talking
regard
about,
to
I mean,
money and politics.
Well, you know, that was to go. I mean, that's what we wanted to change the campaign finance system, and you know, we were talking about how do you start doing this basically on a limited amount of money, whether it was $100 or there was some public financing, or also, but also, I mean, the other part of what we talked about a lot was of how, you know, the corporate media was starting to control everything, you know, and that, that was going to be problematic, and that, you know, we had to open that system up. You know, this was '92, so the internet was kind of there, but nobody knew about it, right?
Right, right.
You know, so it was going to...
A corporate media. Come on, they wouldn't take over. Wait a minute, I think they did. Right. So that's interesting. He was on to some things. I know I'm obsessing about Brown now all of a sudden, but so what do you think of him these days? I mean, it seems like, I don't know, he doesn't seem particularly liberal anymore in California.
You know, I have great respect for Jerry. He's in a tough situation, and I didn't advise him to run for governor again. So he's kind of in a situation that is, I think it would be better. Jerry needs, he would be helped if he get a little bit of his old imagination back, and kind of say we got to do some things differently on this front.
See, the reason I'm obsessing about it is because it's an interesting example. Like, we've got a lot of examples how the Republican Party has corrupted otherwise moderate people. Like, Richard Lugar used to be moderate, certainly in foreign policy. Chuck Hagel used to be, et cetera, et cetera. And now they've all been either driven from the party or have changed previously reasonable positions, as John McCain has done over and over again, immigration, et cetera. But we don't talk about how Democrats have also gone from previously liberal positions to positions that are nowhere near liberal. I mean, the Cuomos in New York are a great example. The father was a real liberal. The son, he's done some good things, but really wedded to big money and making sure that the finance guys who fund his campaign are happy. If they want gay rights, great, that's good. I'm happy about that. But if they also want tax breaks, he's going to give them that too. Jerry Brown is not even a generational thing. It's Jerry Brown. Right. It's the same guy who used to be Governor Moonbeam, who is now, far more conservative than it appears than he was. So, which leads us to your book. Tell me what the book is about.
Well, I mean, that's in part what the book is about. I mean, it's a big part. It's about our politics is, in atrophy. And, and from a liberal perspective, if you want to look from a liberal perspective, I mean, this is interesting because, like I said, I did Ted Kennedy's 1980 primary run. Little did I know that was the last gasp of the New Deal. I mean, that was literally the last gasp of the New Deal, right? And so from that point on, you had, the Reagan Revolution, quote unquote, and you changed the economics, and you had labor, falling apart and labor's declined. Now for, the height of labor as, percentage of the workforce was 1955, right? It was 35%. It's now less than 10%. So this has been a long decline. You've had the destruction of all kind of the local county parties and state parties, and everything has gotten centralized in DC. Like the DSCC and the DCCC, 30 years ago, they had hardly any pull, because the party organizations were still all local and state. And then everything got, centralized in DC. And we lost what was the economic alternative in American politics, which was labor. And, and so we lost that as any kind of weight, right? So then you get the big corporations just taking over everything. Like I say, the New Deal was kind of like a contract between big government, big labor, and big corporations. Big corporations destroyed big labor, and then they took over the government. And that's where we're at today, right? And then you've had this whole 20 years things where the Reagan Revolution, just like, say in 1930s, where the New Deal became the thing that ran the country for 40 years, the Reagan Revolution did the same thing for about 30 years, right? But I would, put forth, and this is what I talk a little bit about in the book, that has played out, right? But what happened is that the Democrats, unlike the Republicans back in like the 50s, never went out and said, all right, we got to rethink everything. The Democrats never did that. All they did is say, all we need to do is regain power. But to regain power, they had to play the game as it was starting to, that it had developed. Right. And that was to raise money, to get on television, and to do polls. And in the meantime, you have the American public completely disenfranchised from the process, right? So what's the one trend in American politics in the last 50 years in party politics? There's only one trend. It's the decline of both parties and the rise of independence. It's the only trend in 50 years. It goes just like that, both parties going like that, independents going like that. Right,
because they're sick of them. Yeah, because they don't represent them.
And not only are they sick of them, they're disenfranchised. I mean, they're not even part of, so only 50% of the people are voting once every 4 years. Right. So
because they're right, because they get it. That my vote doesn't really matter. Right. The guy with more money wins 93% of the time. So what am I wasting my time for? Because they already decided the election.
It's a logical. It's not apathy. It's a logical kind of thing that this system is not working for them.
Exactly. And then what you hear in the corporate media all the time is tisk tisk tisk. They should get out there and vote more. But that's because you're lying to them. You never told them that every one of their politicians has been bribed and they got into office through legalized bribery. Right. And so, but they figured it out on their own anyway, right?
Right.
So, but something you said there is really interesting, not something that I have a lot of experience with, so I want to focus on that. I want to learn from you on that. So, you know, when Tip O'Neill said all politics is local,
right,
everybody said, oh, genius, that's it. He's so right.
Right.
And in my experience, that has not really been the case at all. Let's, you know, in the 10 years that I've been doing this show, let's put it that way, right? And I always think, like, they keep saying that on TV, but that doesn't seem remotely true, right? So, but apparently, as you were saying, obviously it was true. That's why it was a truism, right? And it no longer is. So who was in charge before? How did that relate to the convention or the parties? And when they centralized it, what did that do? I'm interested in that phenomenon.
Right. Well, you know, that's kind of the history of the Republic, right? And it kind of goes back to the fight of the Federalist and the Anti-Federalist at the time of the Constitution, right? And, you know, the whole thing was, you know, as Jefferson, who was the most kind of, had most foresight on this, and understood power in ways that, you know, that was quite good, and was also the best of small d Democrats in the kind of the pantheon, you know, and, you know, the Republic. But, you know, that, like, once you create this kind of center, power's going to start flowing to it. And that's what's happened, you know, over 200 years.
Right.
You know, and so you've had, and over that time, you've had, you know, this was an agrarian republic. I mean, you know, even just up until, you know, the turn of the 20th century, right? 55% of the American people were in agriculture, right? Today, it's less than 2% of people are in farming in this country, right? And so you've had this over time, right? You've had this thing, and like, again, and I'll use another example, like, you know, de Tocqueville, right? He talks about American associations, political associations, and he talked about how, you know, and he went out across all the country and he said, one of the most amazing things about this whole democracy is that as soon as Americans have a problem, they say, let's get a meeting. And they do a meeting.
Right.
I mean, who does a meeting now? I mean, and this is why, you know, I'm doing this little book tour and talking to folks and asking them to put on meetings, and it's interesting how many people have never done a political meeting, you know, never in their lives, right? And so that's
you know, Joe, it's funny, I want to interrupt to ask you, well, what would you do in a meeting?
Well, I mean, that gets to the whole question of how we're going to reform this thing, right? And it's part of, like, what we're doing right now, right, is power has all kind of drifted. I mean, here's one of the things to understand, right? Is that what liberals and conservatives, both sides of it, right? What conservatives won't admit to is that the growth of DC was necessary for the growth of the large corporations. And what the liberals won't admit to is that the growth of the large corporations was necessary for the growth of DC. So both of those things were taking power out of people's hands and out of their lives politically, right? Over time, you know, this is really centuries process, you know? And so the question is how do you bring that power back, and how do you get people? So, like, right now we're going to have a debate for the next 3 months, a debate, sort of bad reality, I call it bad reality TV, you know, about the presidential race. And so, like, and so look at this. I mean, yeah, you talk about this, you know, but look, you've got underwater mortgages. There's 12 million underwater mortgages. 25% of the mortgages there are underwater. That's not going to be an issue in the campaign. Banks. That's not going to be an issue in the campaign because both sides did the bank reform. Healthcare, Romney Care, Obamacare, it's the same thing. It's not going to be an issue in the campaign.
Gee, I wonder why people are disenfranchised. I can't tell.
You know, the foreign policy, the wars, both of them, you know, are not going to say anything different on the wars. So the big issues no one's going to talk about. And not only that, when you can only interact to it through kind of 30-second commercials, right? And that's what we're pouring all this money into the system for, is to buy 30-second commercials. You don't get any debate. You don't get any, you know, education. And, you know, the first steps to organization, the first step of every organization, every step to organizing is to educate. And then the second step is to talk, to have a conversation. Those are the first two steps. And out of that then becomes action.
But Joe, that seems so undoable. Okay, now I'm going to keep it real with you, okay? So look, I hear, as you were saying, underwater homes. I'm like, what are you talking about? President Obama says that he's going to pretend to do something while he does nothing. And Mitt Romney just tells you, well, I'm not even going to pretend.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to do nothing, right? And President Obama says, I'm going to stay in Afghanistan till 2024. Mitt Romney says, I'm going to stay even a little longer.
Right.
Right? So, but the thing is, like, now come back to the conversation idea. I once talked to Dolores Huerta, you know, great organizer with
Right.
Cesar Chavez. And I mean, you want to talk about organizing. They wrote the book on it.
Yeah.
And they did a great job in organizing labor and the farm workers, etc. What seemed undoable, they did, right? And she told me one of the things that they do is they go to churches, like in the old days, right? So they'd go and they say, where are the workers? They're at church, so I'm going to go to church. And I'm going to go and talk to them. I'm going to tell them about how important it is to organize, and together we could win this thing, etc. Now, where are we supposed to go now? I mean, people aren't even at churches, and if you went, I don't know what would happen to you at a church if you tried to organize. Where are we supposed to go? What are we supposed to do?
You know, see, this is where, I mean, where I look at it and kind of look at, we can, and one of the things to understand about political change, right, and political reform, right, is the very best of it is always ephemeral, right? It doesn't last very long because by nature it can't. Because most of the time what you're going to do is bring together people who don't agree and really disagree on some other things really strongly, but they agree that there's 3 or 4 things that have to get done in order for these other things to start happening, right?
Sure.
And so what we have to agree on as Americans is that our politics is broke. And it doesn't matter what we talk about or who we vote for if the political system is continually broke and all we do is elect another person and it's the same thing, right? So we have to go and say, this is who we are. This is who we are as a people, right? This republic is part of our identity. And we're all disenfranchised from it. We all think it's broke. We're all disgusted with what's going on. So then it's going to be up to us to do something. So those first steps are like, have a meeting in your house. Go to the public library, have a meeting. Start creating organizations, right, that face-to-face, right? And then what we also have now is this amazing thing called the internet. So that then these little local organizations can start connecting with each other and start talking to each other about what they're doing, right?
Joe, the critical thing is the next thing, right? Because, look, 85% of the country agrees, right? Politicians are corrupt. They're corrupted by the money that's bribing them, that the lobbyists give them. Right. Republicans agree, Democrats agree, Libertarians agree, everybody agrees, right? The only people who don't agree are the ones that have already been bought in Washington and New York. The media in Washington say, what corruption? I don't know what you're talking about, right? But everybody else agrees, oh, these guys aren't going to do anything for us, right? Now, I can see that. So that's easy, if you ask me. I can see the meeting. I can visualize it. People get together, you agree, yeah, I mean, we're pissed, yada, yada. Okay. What I can't see is how you take all those little meetings across the country and turn it into something that could actually change the government.
Well, this is what I mean, and I'm open for suggestions on this, but after having looked at things and you know, and thought about it and everything, what I think where people need to re-engage government is at the local level, right? Mm-hmm. So like, you know, you have this whole Occupy movement, you know? Well, start going and occupying your city halls. Start going and saying, this is what we're going to talk about, right? Start talking about, like, for example, here's an interesting example of how our politics are broken, right? Since 2007 and 2008 oil spike, last oil spike, right? And then the recession. Public transportation ridership is up all across the country. And what are we doing? We're cutting the public transit budgets all across the country. Right. So we're doing the best thing, like oil is one of the most significant things. You know, I am old enough to remember the spikes in the 70s. I mean, it was part of what got me into politics, right? And we've done nothing about oil except for spend more money on the military to, quote unquote, secure the remaining conventional resources around the Gulf, right?
How'd that work out for us in Iraq?
Exactly. How does that work out for us? And if you want to look at debts and deficit, there is no bigger contributor far and away exponentially than what we spent on military spending in the last 30 years. We've spent trillions of dollars, right? Hasn't gone in, and people should look at that as like just a tax of like oil at this point is becoming a tax, you know? It's becoming this point where it's starting to be a drain on the economy. And we see that when it gets to a certain price, the economy starts slowing down. Like just in this last, in the spring, all of a sudden the economy seemed to be going again. Oil goes up to $100. Boom, the economy slows down again, right? So
you know,
this is something we can, but this is something we can all do, right? We can all cut our oil use, right? And then we can all go and start then saying, why aren't you helping me? I'm now carpooling, or I'm now doing a bus once a week or twice a week. I'm doing this, this, and this. Why isn't it easier for me to go to a store? I have to drive 10 miles to go to a store, or whatever the case may be, right? These are the things that are real in people's lives and that are pocketbook issues, right? And that they can start talking about with each other and then start organizing around. And I don't see how you know, I don't think like going at DC at this point is worthwhile, because you have to create that bottom. You have to recreate, you know, like I said, like people are disenfranchised, you know, so you got the top and then you got this middle where there's nothing and there's everybody down here. And these people have to connect, and then they can start connecting to the rest of it. And without these people connecting, and historically this is just how it works, nothing happens.
Yeah, Washington is a cesspool. And you know, it's interesting, as you were talking, I was thinking like Europe, they tax their gas a lot more. We don't, except we tax each other indirectly by spending all that money in the military. That's a tax. They literally tax us to spend the trillions of dollars so we can have better access to oil. But the thing is, unlike the Europeans, we don't get the benefit of it, because it's not like they give us the oil, they sell us the oil. Right. Right? The benefit goes to the oil companies.
Like $500, $600, $700 billion a year, like Los Angeles, right? Nothing happens here in Los Angeles. I mean, there's very little oil produced in Los Angeles. It used to be much bigger, actually, produced, right?
Oh yeah, yeah,
but, you
absolutely.
Know, you're sending billions and billions of dollars every day, you know, every year out of the city that just goes for oil. We do the same thing as a country. Hundreds of billions of dollars a year just leaves the country just like that.
Right.
And you know, again, this is like, we should look at this as a tax. I mean, you know, maybe we could talk to some of our conservative friends and go, why don't you think that's a tax? You know?
Right, right, absolutely. LA's an interesting story. Before the movie industry, there was a huge oil industry in LA. That's what originally built up LA. Not a lot of people know that. All right, one last thing is, how do people get the book, Joe?
Well, they can get it on Amazon, or they can go to ofbuy4book.com, and they can get it there either via electronic copy or paper copy.
All right, Joe Costello, thank you so much for joining us on the Young Turks. Really appreciate it.
Okay.
All right.